Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're joining me today because we are unpacking something that literally has the power to completely shift how you navigate both your professional and personal life. Today, we're opening up a tactical playbook for emotional mastery. We're going to look at the exact strategies required for navigating really difficult interactions and preserving your emotional composure. And look, this isn't just about feeling calm. This is about maintaining your authority and your strategic advantage when you're staring right in the face of conflict. Now, I want you to think back for a moment. Have you ever reacted to a provocation? Maybe it was a passive-aggressive comment in a meeting or a deliberate little jab from someone you know, only to realize seconds later that you handed them exactly what they wanted. Man, it's a terrible feeling, isn't it? Well, the source material we're analyzing today points out that responding impulsively to deliberately antagonistic behavior does two things. One, it escalates the situation, and two, it hands the provocateur their desired reward on a silver platter. And in the process, you suffer the pain of lost credibility and eventually complete emotional burnout. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our agenda for today. First, mastering your own emotions. Second, neutralizing intentional provocation. Third, reading the unguarded moments. Fourth, navigating envy and deception. And finally, the Hawk strategic perspective.
All right, let's start with section 1, mastering your own emotions.
So, true authority doesn't actually start by controlling a room, right? It starts internally. When tensions rise, an emotionally reactive individual defaults to irrational decisions. They're driven by ego, and they usually end up apologizing later. Now, contrast that with a principled leader. A true leader knows that emotional reactions obscure reality, so they actively preserve their emotional energy to ensure their decisions are driven entirely by facts, not feelings. If you aspire to any kind of leadership role, you literally must first master this internal emotional energy. Because trust me, people are constantly going to test your character and probe for weaknesses. And this brilliantly illustrates our next point. Do not undermine yourself simply to protect a fragile ego. When you react emotionally, you severely compromise the quality of your decisions. You start looking at the situation through the lens of feeling rather than fact. And here's the reality check. Emotional reactions possess the power to destroy your standing before anyone else even has the opportunity to do so. Your credibility is your absolutely most valuable asset. So whatever you do, don't sacrifice it just to defend your pride or attempt to retaliate in some trivial conflict. Which brings us to section 2, neutralizing intentional provocation. Let's be totally realistic here. Not everyone is placed in your path to make your life easier. When dealing with deliberately antagonistic people, step 1 is early detection. You need to identify the individual and their intent to provoke early in your interaction. Step 2 is execution. You respond with silence and visible disinterest. Just use the power of the pause and absolutely refuse to acknowledge their attempt. And then step 3 is distance. You really cannot predict when a highly reactive person might act again, so putting distance between you and them is, for sure, your strongest strategic option. So, the crucial point is this. Silence and disinterest dismantle provocation. Refusing to engage isn't a sign of weakness. It actually prevents you from being lowered to their level and completely neutralizes their efforts. By staying the course and refusing to feed the conflict, you deny them the reaction they are starving for. Retaliating with equal force? Well, that only strengthens the person trying to provoke you. Moving right along to section 3, reading the unguarded moments. To leverage unguarded moments professionally, you've got to be a really sharp observer under pressure. The sources emphasize that when people are intoxicated, fatigued, or angered, they are far more likely to inadvertently expose what's been simmering beneath the surface. You have to listen carefully to nonverbal signals, and please do not get absorbed in your own thoughts during these moments, or you risk missing critical, unspoken truths. Furthermore, you need to recognize repeat patterns. When an emotionally reactive person apologizes for an outburst, honestly, they are rarely sorry for the action itself. They simply regret revealing a side of themselves they really wanted to keep hidden. Let's transition over to section 4, navigating envy and deception. Now, the text warns us that these toxic dynamics aren't just found in boardrooms. Antagonistic individuals can often be found among friends, colleagues, and even family members. A strained friendship might look like envy on the surface, but it's often just a mask. Actually, if someone close to you habitually provokes you or operates with a hidden agenda, bringing them closer only enables a much more damaging strike. You have to recognize that maintaining your composure sometimes means taking a hard look and reevaluating those closest to you.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how a deceiver thrives when we fail to observe their actions over time. As the source material notes, emotionally reactive people might promise to change, kind of lulling you into believing their sincerity. They hide behind this friendly, agreeable exterior. But in time, you are absolutely going to notice their true, reactive behavior reemerging right through the cracks of that pleasant facade. The takeaway? Trust actions over words, and distance yourself the second your instincts tell you they might be planning something harmful.
And this brings us to our final section, the hawk's strategic perspective. Operating with true strategic insight means taking a higher vantage point. Let's see how this builds. Like a hawk, you must observe first and react never. By silently analyzing behavior before responding, you maintain an elevated awareness. This lets you spot those who secretly admire you and desire a closer relationship, as well as those who just wish to provoke you, all without getting dragged into their emotional turbulence. You observe every individual you encounter to maintain your strategic advantage. Because when dealing with manipulative individuals, you really cannot predict when they might act again. Cultivating a reputation for absolute composure keeps them totally off balance. If distancing yourself isn't possible, you must use their own tactics against them by refusing to give them the emotional reaction they anticipate. Listen, being predictable in your emotional responses is a massive strategic liability. Instead, you need to rely on a calculated use of silence to maintain your control. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Think about your own environment right now. Who is currently testing your emotional control? And more importantly, armed with this tactical playbook, how will you use the power of silence and visible disinterest to neutralize them tomorrow? Don't just absorb this information, observe your surroundings and apply it. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next explainer.